is continuously at 95% every month. Yes, it could potentially hurt your score as well.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with interest.
Okay. All right. And this one is also relating to the matter of the card limit. If you say I have a limit of less than 2,000 as opposed to one that is like 5K, 5,000, does it matter the limit on the card? This one is from Miss Headley. I'm not sure, Miss Headley, if you want to use the chat to ask your question. I'm not sure if I read it clearly, but that is what I am seeing here. So you may want to clarify your question if you want to take the time to do that, either by doing so via the Q&A chat, or you can also submit it again with some greater clarity for us, because I'm not sure, Jason, if you are able to respond based on what I read there, but that's what I.
Well, will Miss Headley contemplate sending it back in?
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's trying to ask if a lower limit has a lesser impact than a higher limit. No, because utilization is a percentage. It's how much of the limit you are using. But nevertheless, I hope that she submits the question with, making any corrections. But yeah, it's utilization and not just the limit alone.
Okay. And where can we find a list of the entities that upload data to the platform?
Well, we tend to share that with the actual subscribers. However, I will still give you the list at the moment. We do have 30 subscribers on board. We have all commercial banks. The last commercial bank that joined us would have been Sagicor Bank. We do have the credit union movement, 15 credit unions, the public workers, the City of Bridgetown, Affinity Plus, Lifetime, UWI, Endeavor, Protective Services. There are a number of credit unions. Not the entire credit union movement is not on board. There are some smaller credit unions that the Credit Union League has expressed the potential that they will merge with other credit unions to become compliant. We do have Courts is on board. Massey Stores is on board as well. PS Digital, Rubis, Ascendancy, Sagicor Life is on board as well. And recently, Signia Globe is on board as well. So the legislation speaks to it's mandatory for banks, credit unions, and insurance companies to share. However, it doesn't stop us from bringing on subscribers outside of those sectors. As I said, we have 30 at the moment, and we do have some more due to come on board before the end of the year, but I can't call those names yet because we don't have signed agreements. But just offering some additional information as well. There are non-lending institutions as well that can become subscribers of the Bureau. So for example, the regulator can determine that utilities companies have to share data with the Bureau. So that would mean the cell phone providers, the telephone providers, it could be the electricity provider, it could be, natural gas provider, water, student revolving, those types of entities can also share information with the Bureau. So it's those 30, and I can share those with you, Stacy, that you can then share those with the participants by email afterwards if you wish. But yes, just to answer to the question, plus some additional information.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All right. Quite a few questions on the credit cards and credit scores. So we have a question here from Tanya. She says, you said income has nothing to do with every data, Why is it on the report?
Sometimes institutions will upload that information when they submit your data. It is not mandatory information to be uploaded. However, it sometimes is there. You will also find things like interest rate will be there as well, but the interest rate, your income, those are not variables that are factored into the calculation of the score, but they are fields in our system, in our database, that can allow for the capture of that type of information.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Can you show the rating again, the score rating again? So perhaps pull that slide back up.
Mhm. Well,
It was earlier up in the, yes. All right, so there it is on screen. I'm not sure what information you're looking for exactly, but you did ask to have it back on the screen, so there it is. Well, that displays, Jason, how long does information stay on the report?
7 years. Closed and settled accounts stay on the credit report for 7 years, which is the law. After 7 years, they will disappear.
Thank you. How do you deal with clients who have lived their lives avoiding credit and pay in full for all purchases? Would their zero score be seen negatively?
No, that is a question for the institution that you're attempting to borrow from. If I may just give a short story here, there are some individuals who like to pay in full. It then makes it difficult for an institution to understand what your habits are in terms of dealing with credit. So the credit report allows for footprint. For example, when we brought on PS Digital, that would have brought some individuals who were previously credit invisible onto the radar, and I don't say onto the radar in a bad way. There are some folks in society who may have a credit card that has $1,000 limit, and they will, send the children to school on that. They will use it to buy groceries, month to month. They will make it work for them. But then, for one instance, I had two young ladies visit the office one day, and one said that, I would love to borrow a couple $1,000 because I want to raise 300 chickens in the yard, and has no credit footprint by which an institution can use to be able to make a decision. So there are folks out there that are like that by choice, and then they are being sensitive here. There are some people who just don't borrow from the bank because, they may be making a small amount of money. Something as simple as a phone bill as well can be used by an institution to be able to understand how you manage your affairs. So a nil report, as I said, can be generated, or you have no facilities with anyone. That is a question for Philip to, if somebody doesn't have a footprint, how is that handled?
Okay, thanks, Jason. Usually when we come across those cases, as Jason indicated, the institution have to make a decision on lending to that person But the question is, how much? Since they don't have a footprint out there, we would have to decide at that point in time how much we're going to lend, how long we're going to lend. Now, usually what will happen is that we would lend an amount which we would deem to be within our risk appetite so that we can get a history in terms of how well that person will repay a loan. So it is not a negative, but it is what we say amber, caution, to see how well person will repay based on what we lend. So let's say they don't have a footprint and they come for a mortgage. Well, that will become, a little bit higher of a risk, even though that there is an asset in place. But what we will do with that asset in place is to ensure that we keep all the lending within certain parameters if we move forward. But sometimes, depending on, again, the amount, as I said, you may not be able to access the full amount, but some of it to create the footprint. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. All right. It seems, Jason, as though some persons are having a challenge with the app in terms of the format for the it's the telephone number as well as the national ID number. Do you have any tips for them in terms of
Yeah, but what we can do then, Stacy, to help them is that we can capture the names if they can indicate that challenge, and we can have a representative reach out to assist them with the registration. So
all right,
that's
well,
okay. We could just collect those names and we reach out to provide some assistance.
okay, I'll ask Christian to take note of those names, please. All right, and does having an unused credit facility help or hurt my credit score? Specifically, an overdraft facility.
But overdraft is more attached to, it's not necessarily
Unused.
a loan. That's more attached to accounts, but nevertheless, I guess it's seen as a line of credit. So as long as it's a revolving credit, closer to zero, the better.
All right. And does your partner's credit rating affect yours in marriage?
If the account is joined.
If it's joint.
Yes.
It can affect once it's a joint account, especially with mortgages. So one party may be paying that loan or paying their other facility as well. And because they have a joint account, then it will pop at the credit bureau that there's delinquency out there.
Yeah, because it is a shared contract.
Yeah.
So it will.
Kevin is asking, does paying utility bills couple days late, example flow, negatively impact my credit score?
Well, Flow is not currently a subscriber, so it will not. But just some additional information. We allow 5 days buffer for a payment to be made before it is regarded as late in our system. So, and that is done that way to deal with, public holidays. You might not have been able to get out and to make the payment, or the institution might have had difficulties running the deduction or the installment to where it is supposed to go because of the bank holidays or some event. So there's a little buffer that there is to play with before it is regarded as late. But utilities companies are not presently sharing data with us, so any late telephone bills and so on will have zero impact on your credit score.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. apart from every data, is there another way that the public can access their credit reports and credit scores?
Well, there is another credit bureau. However, their methods may be different to ours. But the only way to assess your credit report and score right now is through every data. And it is called the Fair Credit Reporting Act because it uses negative and positive information to give a fair representation of a person's credit worthiness, capacity, and standing. You're unable to produce a credit score that is fair if you're only collecting information on one side of the coin, right? So every data is a place for you to go to assess your credit report. I know that there are credit scores that exist at another entity. However, I'm unclear on their methods for calculating their scores.
Okay. I have another one. On my credit report, I have a credit card as open. However, it says granted but not activated. Since this is open, could it affect my credit score in any way, seeing it does not have any activity?
If it doesn't have any activity and is at zero, it's less than 10%, you have no activity on it. No, that's exactly where through the presentation we've been speaking about having it at zero. However, if it is a credit card open, granted, and activated, and the individual has no knowledge of the credit card, I would advise them to raise a dispute so that the institution can bring clarity and assign the correct status to that facility, because it potentially is something that probably doesn't need to be there at all.
Yes. Is there a feature on the app to request the full credit score?
Right, the credit score, we are now implementing the platform where you can pay for your credit score with credit report with score. That will be ready shortly. However, you can reach out to our offices directly where we can take you through the process for getting your paid report. There is information on our website, bb.everydata.com. On our First Citizen account where you can pay through your banking app and so on, and you reach out to our customer service team and we can furnish you with the report. But as I said, very shortly, you can pay for your credit report with score through the app, which will make life a lot easier for everyone. Our offices are open from 8:30 to 4:30, and our contact number is 629-0580. So that's 629-0580.
Yeah. Should I dispute an error for a loan that was prepaid and cleared already and for which some time has passed, 1 year?
So you prepare the loan and the balance is showing as the correct amount at zero on the loan. There must be some error associated with the contract for a dispute to be raised. So I don't know if you can ask that individual, Stacy, to perhaps give some more information. If it is cleared, if it is settled and closed, that's fine. If the person has prepaid it and perhaps a balance is still showing when there should be no balance, yes, I would advise you to dispute it and attach any documentation that you may have to support the dispute, that we can forward it to the respective institution.
Okay, we'll see if she updates her question. All right. I think the questions. You have some compliments in the chat, both Jason and Philip. Very good presentations, very clear and concise. So kudos to you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Stacey. And
Thanks, Stacey. Thank you, and I thank those that logged on as well. I think we're trying to make the whole concept of the whole idea about credit. And I know from the get-go, credit scores, credit ratings, it's like a mystery to some persons and what affects them and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why we're here doing what we're doing right now. So I'm happy that persons find it educational and understanding. So
Yes.
thank you again.
You're not finished yet. You'll be finished shortly, but not as yet. Does store cards, Massey Quartz cards, for example, are they visible on your credit report, and does it affect your score? Is it appropriate for a landlord to run a credit check on you?
So courses information will data sharing will commence shortly. So the same pointers and tips associated with the other facilities I mentioned will apply to course information as long as it's shared. The same applies. And the second question was it Massey? No, what was the second part of the question, Stacy? Sorry.
Oh, boy, I moved on from that one. Just 1 second. Right, is it appropriate for a landlord
Landlord.
to run a
Yeah.
credit check on you?
No, only subscribers can pull credit reports on individuals. If it is that your landlord has asked you for a credit report, you can share maybe a portion of it that's at your discretion, right? So only subscribers can pull credit reports. So an individual or a company who is not a subscriber can't just, pick up the phone and call us and say, I want to pull a credit report on Stacy. It doesn't work like that because there's a membership agreement, there's responsibilities in place, and then the important item as well is that pulling credit reports is also rooted in consent. So I just give some background information on that since that has come up. As I mentioned, the law mandates banks, insurance companies, and credit unions to share, which means that if you say to your bank, well, bank, I don't want you sharing my information, you're essentially telling your bank you're going to clear all of your facilities tomorrow. And even if you clear them, the bank is still required by law to show the history of your payments associated with any contracts that you've had with the institution. For sectors that are not mandated to share, let's say it's Jason Hire Purchase, I become a subscriber of the Bureau, and I am not mandated to share by law. So I will have to send notice to my customers saying, well, I've now become a member of Everydata and I'm seeking your consent to share information. You can say no, which means I can't share the information. But what Jason Hire Purchase will do is that all of my new hire purchase agreements will have wording in it that says, by agreeing to this hire purchase agreement, I also agree that I can share, verify data, share information with the bureaus associated with your payment history as part of this hire purchase agreement, which means then that any future hire purchase agreements then are shared with the bureau. But sharing data for non-mandated entities is rooted in consent because at any stage, we can ask the subscriber to give us proof that you have consent from a random number of individuals to be sharing their data. Or similarly, the regulator can come knocking as well for you to share, that we have proof to be sharing it, and you as well have proof to be sharing that data on individuals. So many times we go to the bank and we go to open a new account or credit card, and there's about 7 or 8 pages to sign. And we're in the bank sitting down for an hour and a half, and we can't wait to get out through the door to get to work. Somewhere in those pages, there's consent written in there. So maybe the next time you open a loan agreement or credit card or what have you, you take some time to scan through it as well, and you can identify the consent language to share information as well. But in many cases, sometimes we don't read it because sitting and reading 8 pages of information, sometimes we don't have the patience for that. So I just want to give you that additional information as well.
Okay, thank you, Jason. All right, I'm going to allow our member, well, a participant here, Miss Daniel, Alberta Daniel, to speak. Go ahead, Miss Daniel. Not hearing you.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for having this session. Unfortunately, I came in late on my way from work. I put a question in chat and it wasn't responded to, so that's why I asked to speak. Is any information going to be shared? I know you might not necessarily want to share the whole presentation, but are there any excerpts that can be shared? In particular, I'm looking at the screen. Because I came in late, I haven't grasped the full concept, and I would like to be able to take time to review it. Is it possible that any parts of the information can be released?
For Alberta, I can discuss that with Stacy, where we can have maybe the key takeaways from the entire presentation shared with you, that you'll be able to grasp what was shared this evening, sorry. All right,
Thanks much.
so yeah, and I don't know, but I believe that my good friends at Public Workers may in the future have a similar session, so we'll be looking for you as well from the get-go there as well, Alberta.
Yes, we will have that discussion, Jason, in terms of what we can share with the participants after the session. Just give us some time, maybe a few days, early next week, to have that information in your inboxes. Right. So there are quite a few questions. Some of them appear to be repeats. So I'm just trying to manage those. Christian, am I missing any that that we haven't yet responded to? Just trying to stay on top of the questions. If there's anyone else who feels a question was put in the chat that they have not heard, you can also raise your hand and I will allow you to speak if you prefer to take that approach. How does the line of credit work? How does the line of credit work? Philip, this may be one for
Let
you.
Philip.
Okay. The line of credit is a loan, first thing, because I think one of the myths of a line of credit is that persons don't see it as a loan. But it is a loan. Once it's money borrowed in whatever form, it's a loan from a financial institution. Now, it operates similar to what you have as a credit card. It's what we call a revolving loan, open-ended. You're given a limit based on certain criteria, and you can access it up to the maximum of that limit. You pay back. That payment is taken both principal and interest. You pay interest only on the balance that you have utilized. So let's say you have a line of credit of $10,000 and you have utilized only $4,000. when you repair, the interest that is taken from your payment